Hello, everybody, and welcome to AWS Security Live. This is a show about security, cloud security, multi-cloud security, all kinds of security, and those interesting challenges that we all face out there. And we are here to discuss how to solve some of those challenges with AWS and our AWS partners. We stream live every other Tuesday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific. And I am one of your co-hosts, Ryan Orsi. I lead a team inside AWS called the Security and Cloud Ops Partner Specialist teams. It just means that we work on really cool challenges out there with AWS partners related to security and identity and governance and cloud operations. And I'm joined by one of our other favorites, co-hosts with the most, Mr. Himanshu Verma.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for the intro, Ryan. My name is Himanshu. I lead the team of our worldwide security, identity, and governance specialists. We help customers and partners with their security outcomes. And as Ryan mentioned, yes, this is all about security. And one of the topics, you mentioned cloud security, hybrid security, AI security is something that comes up all the time these days. As customers and partners adopt AI and Gen AI workloads, something that we've been hearing quite a bit.
And they want to know, is it safe? Is it compliant? And there's all these questions, right, about what do I need to know before I bring AI into my environments, and what kind of AI usage are employees using, and from what devices, and is it sanctioned, and what's the intent, right? What's the intent behind an employee or a contractor in the company trying to leverage an AI tool? I think we're going to get a lot of insights if we bring on one of our good friends from Netskope, Mr. David Willis. Are you there, David?
I am here, Ryan. It is a pleasure to be here, guys, and joining you from lovely Portugal.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, the view of the air conditioner is lovely.
Very nice.
Awesome.
That's great, David. Welcome to the show. Meantime, viewers, tell us where you're signing up from. Anybody, let's see if anyone can beat Portugal.
That's a high bar. That's a pretty high bar, Jeff. So David, if you wouldn't mind, give us a little background on yourself and Netskope. And well, we know you've been up to a lot of AI guardrails, AI security. We'd love to hear a bit more.
Yeah. So quick intro about myself. I started in IT back in 1998 after leaving the Navy. So I've been in the industry for a long time, and I've worked my way up the stack, starting at networking and moving through application performance and into security, and then of course into cloud security and the security of the modern environment, which is why I came to Netskope. So if I were to put Netskope into a, 50-word blurb, I would describe Netskope as a cloud-first security platform that delivers a wide variety of customer-facing security, threat protection, data protection outcomes, regardless of how those users are accessing services that are facing the internet. So that includes making sure that users who are going to private workloads in AWS or in their own data center, people going to public applications, people browsing the web. All of those are seen through the same lens of, look, it's sensitive data regardless of how you're accessing it. Threats are consistent regardless of how and where those threats are coming in. So we provide that ubiquitous global framework that follows you wherever you go without having to sacrifice performance. So that's the nice thing. I've been in security a while, right? People are always like, I like security until it doesn't make my experience great. And then I want to turn it off. And that's also true of Gen AI.
Yeah, very true. And super respectful, David. I mean, there's lots of us in the industry out there, in the security industry, that, we'll try to not boil the ocean. We'll try to solve one particular problem. But the second you solve that problem for today, next week or next month, it's evolved and it's a part of a broader campaign. It's become like an intermingled issue. So hats off to you, sir, for maintaining that visibility across the board. I imagine it's a real boring job. You don't have a lot to do.
Yeah. It's what's been fascinating about it is the world continues to move just faster and faster. I cannot believe that Gen AI really wasn't a topic 2 years ago. MCP wasn't a topic 1 year ago. Agent to agent communications with all the iterations. All of this is just moving so fast, and it must be terrifying to be on the other side. I'm at the vendor side. I get to create solutions, but to be a defender and an enabler in this environment, it's just got to be overwhelming. And when we talk to AWS, I love the focus on customer outcomes because they're the ones in the trenches trying to make all this stuff work.
Oh, that's the us's, and many us's behind Himanshu and I and others in different teams as well. But Himanshu, I think we walked them right into our honeypot, didn't we? On the acronym.
I know. We did. I think I was actually going to start with some of the honeypots with David. David, I was going to ask the question. I think you mentioned software as a service is how I remember Netskope pioneering the ability to view and have visibility across your SaaS environment. And I know, I think that's where some of the security policy aspects came into place, whether it's secure internet gateway, which evolved later into the secure web gateway, and then the ability to have, visibility and orchestration. How is that now changing as customers evolve these SaaS applications into AI or agents?
Yeah, that phrase "what was old is new again" is absolutely true here. We see generative AI as having some very unique characteristics, primarily around intent. It used to be very transactional. Now you're looking for patterns across multiple interactions between a user and the application, and there's a lot more automation. I would say we did not see nearly as much machine-to-machine communication that was carrying across such a broad ecosystem of use cases, carrying sensitive information, and those do make it unique. And I don't want to diminish the importance of that, but yet the key point here is the traffic is still running over secure layer encryption. Right. The data is still in XML or HTML format. You need to have deep insights into these applications and then have a true fluency around those applications in order to create visibility and then ultimately enforcement, right? To us, it's the language of the internet. It's just another variant of that language. So that's why we get excited about generative AI, because frankly, to us, it is a unique extension of what we've been doing since we were created.
And it's pretty helpful, right, David? I mean, as builders, employees, of this company and your company, AWS and Netskope, I mean, just leveraging some of these tools in our day to day. And when you put yourself in the shoes of a security operations center, because I'm going to not say an acronym yet, like a SOC analyst, that's able to leverage some of these tools for enrichment of findings, to reduce the amount of time they have to do log diving and searching to find other events that are related to the one particular event they're looking at. It's quite an efficiency boost. But I'm just wondering, you mentioned agent to agent versus say user to user or user to agent, and you said something about enforcement, which made me think about governance and guardrails. A very popular topic right now when someone's looking at AI in their company or an AI application already built. So depending on what layer of that AI stack they want to do, a pre-built application ready to go as a software as a service, or baseline build a custom LLM from the ground up.
Yep.
They're thinking a lot, and this goes to Himanshu and I, our day jobs, right? We're in these meetings talking to a lot of different companies around the world. They'd like to understand, how can I put guardrails around these different workflows to make sure that I maintain compliance either with external regulations or even internal policy? And I imagine the workflow matters if it's agent to agent versus user to agent or user to user. And I'm just curious what you've dug into over there at Netskope.
Yeah. So I think the key difference is, of course, how do you insert yourselves into those transactions? I say easy. It's not easy. It's very hard to get between a user and an application, regardless of how that user accesses the internet, right? Getting in front of a person who's accessing their own personal application from a personal device is considerably different than a user on a corporate laptop using a VPN, for example. So it's hard, but it's a whole other level when you're talking about A to A or MCP, agentic workflows with either an MCP in the middle or some other enabling tool. So what Netskope has been doing is, first of all, the key is to discover. And we have a wide variety of ways of discovering AI usage in the cloud. And that is in part by working with partners like AWS who can surface that information, or other key partners of ours like CrowdStrike who can surface that information about workloads that are in use. But we also have a discovery mechanism, which includes a product that's coming out very soon that enables us to get in the middle of all of those transactions.
You mean you're not going to leak product roadmap on this very private?
There's actually a person standing right here with a baton ready to whack me. So,
folks, watch, if you want to pressure David into giving up his roadmap, just put in the chat.
Yeah. Look, the reality is we have been intercepting, coming up with ways to intercept this traffic since our history. This is just another mechanism for us to get in the middle of that. And again, the key is it's a consistent enforcement and detection platform. It doesn't matter how users are getting there, which I think is, again, important, because a user or an administrator, a security person, doesn't want 100 tools. They already have 100 tools. They don't want another 15 or 20 that are just with an AI stack, because they still have many, many other apps. We see an average of 7 to 10 generative AI apps being used by most customers. Most customers have 1,000 applications. So yes, this is important. Yes, it's growing in usage. It's broadening. It's not just a POC anymore. We're seeing adoption start to really take off, but it is a part of the overall IT infrastructure. So yeah, we need to get in the middle of that. And then the other key piece here is, with users, we have an identity provider we can work with, like our key partners like with Okta, where we get that user. It's different with agents, right? Now you have service accounts. Now you have IAM roles. Now you have these ephemeral temporary permissions that are not necessarily bound to a person, although they might be a delegated user. So you have to find a way to extract that information and then figure out where those permissions came from, and do they still have the rights to engage in the kinds of queries that they need. So again, it's the same thing, just a little harder in terms of gathering that information and binding it to policy on a consistent basis. There's a bunch of other ways that we're doing this, including a DSPM product, so we can find the information that users or agents are accessing, which further informs our risk framework to say, is this user or this service account have the entitlements to access this incredibly risky transaction because of the content of the data or the access that is actually potentially going to fan out because of the other people that are able to take advantage of the information being pulled into the MCP.
David's on the roll with all these acronyms.
Yeah, lots of acronyms. Sorry.
I think the audience on our show are pretty active when it comes to that. But I think you hit on a good point, David. And I just want to distill that. You did mention that risk is where I think the visibility now is moving towards, whether it's human to human, human to machine, or machine to machine interaction, and to provide that visibility and context, you need to have the ability to foresee, or the ability to identify where all the sensitive information is, because now I think with all these different communication parameters between machines and humans, or machine to machine, and in the future, if it becomes self-learning and autonomous, which is where I think we're moving towards, where is the sensitive data and how it's protected? So I think I hear you use the term data security posture management, DSPM.
Yep.
Can you dive a little bit deeper into that? My understanding is that the whole concept starts with first also being aware, or being able to identify where all is that sensitive information before you add that context and before you enrich that with the risk, right? So how is that getting worked upon?
Yeah. So as you say, you have to start with discovery, and there's many sources of information that could potentially be put into an LLM or used as an LLM from a RAG perspective, or whatever the use case may be, right? Text, raw data, vectors. So you have to find that first. And of course, the most important thing about it is, what is the content and who has access to it? What systems, what users? That enables you to understand the true risk of the possibility of that data being misused. After that, there is a classification or a taxonomy that needs to be created to say, all right, if I am going to allow certain kinds of transactions or certain kinds of users to access data, can they access this kind of data? Can they access the data that is in this location at this particular period of time to do certain things? Because bear in mind, the data itself might not be that sensitive depending upon what is being accessed in it or what system is accessing it. If it's a closed system, it's not a big deal. If it's an external party getting access to it, all of a sudden it's a very different risk factor.
And you can actually policy on that, right? Like, you can enforce the policy on that.
You took my thunder, Ryan.
All right.
Yeah. So the key is finding it is kind of like going back in time and looking at security when there was intrusion detection as opposed to intrusion prevention. So the goal is to take that information and use it to drive real-time decisions about saying, yes, this is sensitive. Don't allow it to happen. Don't allow that user to get it. Don't allow the posture to be changed. Don't allow the data to move, whoever wants it or wherever it's being sent from. And I think having that architecture that is, again, treating all this information with a global lens towards governance and a global understanding of what constitutes sensitivity is key, because generative AI is just another use case, right? It's a different set of identities, it's a different set of use cases, but the data itself, as long as you have that risk framework, the data itself is going to be treated relatively the same with some tweaks, regardless of if it's being used by a generative AI tool like Bedrock or by an application like Salesforce.
Yeah, it's like a new Mario Kart racetrack, except there's no road lines, so everyone's going all over the place. And here comes Netskope to put the actual lines in the road so we can move in the right direction. Have some basic traffic laws and things like that, and we are all more productive for it.
That's right. That's right.
I think what I heard David explain actually sounded like like it's the combination of trust and verification again. And I think before, we were talking about generative AI and all these different ways of communication across the data. We were talking about zero trust policies or zero trust frameworks. Yep. So it seems like we're back to, again, that the importance of zero trust, but now in the landscape of AI ML. Is that fair assessment, David?
That is absolutely true. And again, that's why I was saying what is old is new again, right? The zero trust framework needs to be implemented consistently regardless of what that application is or what the architecture is. So it's just, what elements are you dropping into the pillars, right? Is it a host or is it a machine workload? Is it, is it data that is in a structured file or a structured database, or is it an LLM, or is it a raw object like a video being created, potentially being misused for a deep fake, right? So yes, it's very, very similar. In fact, it's identical. I wanted to touch on one thing though that we haven't mentioned necessarily, which is, we want these frameworks, we want these guardrails, but we also want people to use this stuff. And we want people to use generative AI. And yes, we want the guardrails to make people feel safe. But we also want to encourage people to maybe engage in as much exploration as they can. We're seeing adoption growing, but we're not seeing necessarily everyone at a company using this, right? We're seeing 40% growth from a small number. So what I'd like to do is just show you guys a different, a little video that shows what this looks like.
Oh, thank you, David. Making it real. This is what people want.
Yes.
Ask questions. So, by the way, we'll get to questions in a second. I think I see a couple coming in.
So what I wanted to show here is this is a user at a company who has been encouraged to go and use any different kind of application they want. But there are some applications that are not safe. In this case, ChatGPT, non-corporate, that's what the user's trying to get to. Now, this is an overly simplistic approach, but basically what we said was, you can't go there. You need to go to an application like Bedrock, and we're going to auto redirect you. Now, this auto redirection is to a tool that we've created that leverages Bedrock. So in this example, the user would be, logging in here to take advantage of it. And I'm going to stop with that. What I want to do then is just explore a little bit more what I mean by this use case. So
you were able to catch the intent was probably very positive, right? Employee trying to do something, they've been using ChatGPT in their personal life. So they're gonna use it at work. But
That's
the
correct.
corporate policy, I said, hey, maybe that particular tool, it's unsanctioned. We're not so sure about company data being leveraged in such a tool. So therefore, instead of totally blocking the use of that of AI for that employee, just redirect them.
That's correct. And further, what I did was a very basic login. What we tend to see this happening is people will let their users go out and engage with ChatGPT to do things like, I want to upload this puppy picture and get a German Shepherd merged with a Chihuahua, right? They can do that. But as soon as they start to engage in more sensitive activities, it would be.
Right. You got me. You got me there.
Yeah. You can't think too much about that. That's why you have to give it to AWS or give it to AI Bedrock. But the idea here is you come up with a continuous validation and recursive risk framework that says the more sensitive the transaction, the kinds of data that you're touching, the systems that you're working with, we're going to give you different levels of allowance. And so in this example, it was just like, no, this is unacceptable. I could have done this with I'm going to upload the secret sauce recipe to McDonald's, and all of a sudden, it would have definitely blown up. But if I were doing, again, the Chihuahua thing, it would have let me go to ChatGPT. The idea here is we want to encourage people to use generative AI. It's an amazing tool for creating innovation. But we don't necessarily want them to do the same thing with different platforms. Bedrock, especially.
Would David, in this case, sorry to interrupt, would we also log this attempt using the tool so that there's audit and verification? I think we were getting all these questions early on from a lot of the customers. And the challenge is that there's so many different variables of how AI ML is interacted with. I think in this case, like you're showing an example where there's a consumer application, widely available. And what we can do is, have some level of acceptance from the user from a risk and governance standpoint, but also audit and have visibility into when was that attempt done to mitigate the risk. As we move into other examples, like you said, like Amazon Bedrock, which is a managed service with foundational models, even then things start to vary because customers want to build their own, fine-tuned models, and they want to bring data to managed services like Bedrock or foundational models, or they want to build their own large language models from scratch using SageMaker. And I think the risk profile and the governance changes significantly how you're interacting, with what type of AI application. So this is a very exciting use case where you're highlighting how the scoping metrics per se for risk and governance can be easily implemented using tools like Netskope.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And, having those understanding of how users are engaging with these applications to us is just another subset of transactional information that we would gather. So the prompt response, the data in the prompt, right? Looking through that from the lens of data protection and having that audit log, you can follow the lineage of the data. Where did it come from? Why did the user upload it? Where was the response coming from, right? Where did the LLM see its data because of our that data lineage that we get? You put together the whole picture and you start to not only get a clear idea of what is the risk, but a better idea of how users are engaging with these applications. And that should be a good thing, right? We want to make our tools smarter. And we want to give those tools. So again, it's not necessarily a choice of it has to be security or performance and application, activity. You shouldn't have to make a sacrifice one or the other. You should be able to get security and get the functionality that you need.
And you've got me thinking, David, too. If you're able to, with your Netskope product, able to get into, you just showed us you could get into the application requests. Person X tried to access web application Y, which was ChatGPT in that example. But I'm sure you're able to get down into the actual prompts and response. Yes. And then if I know you all at Netskope, I think you'll be able to provide some advice, maybe back to the CIO kind of, or an application owner of, hey, users are trying to do this kind of thing, which you might want to consider like building into a workflow, possibly.
Yeah.
So not just security as a binary yes or no, traffic allowed or denied, but I think also there's some enablement here as well. But back to the company, that you're able to see like the pattern of usage, and maybe convert something into a little AI workflow agent, or an AI AI application that then can be gone through the usual application security checks that a company would do if it was more of a traditional monolithic app.
Yeah. No, we're even going beyond that. We're actually making it easy for third parties to take the data and the transactions that they're running and run it through the Netskope classification engine, which will grow down the road into more things. But basically, to extend this functionality out to any company that wants to develop and partner, so that they themselves can have this classification, have this intent, create these reports, create these agentic workflows, to create a end-to-end lifecycle management of the risk, of the data itself being used in generative AI.
Perfect. Perfect. Hey, folks, I just realized we have some questions, maybe starting with Firu. Sorry for mispronouncing the handle there. Asking, as a newbie, is the AWS Cloud Practitioner certification good to start with for a newbie? Himanshu, I'm going to say 100% yes, and please continue to the security specialist certification.
Yeah. In fact, I think there is a security champion track now available in the skill builder. So if you're looking for, going from cloud practitioner to a security track, I think the security champion skill builder track is a very good one.
Good point. Good point. And then I believe the next one, if I'm pronouncing this right, is a great handle. Schizophrenic Web Developer asks, this is all you, David. A question about what is Netskope doing with data? I imagine.
Oh, yeah. No. This is actually one of the reasons that we paused on some of our customer-facing AI tools. We've been using it internally, but no, we do not sell or pivot on customer data. The data that customers are given to us is left separate. We have our own training engines and LLMs that we use to iterate on our data. We do not sell customer data.
Never would have suspected it for a moment. And also, that's a good point of, when you're partnered with AWS, right? Our number one priority in the company is security. We often say everything starts with security in this company, right, Himanshu? It's a mantra. It's a rallying cry across the company, no matter what role you're in. So, Netskope is in a security competency with us. If you look it up online, what is AWS security competency? It means that our two companies are very close together from a product development perspective, when they're releasing things and working on things, and vice versa, when AWS product or service teams are working on things, Netskope is often there with us, providing feedback and testing, and vice versa. And we're also very close out there in the field when customers that may be watching now or thinking about cloud in the future are tasked with these challenges. We are there together. So thank you for the partnership there, David. We are getting close to time. I believe you all will be at reInvent.
Absolutely. We will see you there with any questions you might have.
AWS reInvent. It's going to be quite the meeting out there in Las Vegas, just after the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday, if you all are in the U.S. By the way, one of your most journalistic difficult questions before we go is, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized bears or one bear-sized duck?
I grew up in Montana. I'm taking the duck every day.
Oh,
the 100 little bears with the teeth and the claws just sound.
It's like piranha. It's like furry piranha. That's
right. Piranha's out of water.
I think we use a term called paper cuts. So you don't want like small paper cuts. Rather take one big critical risk.
Terrible visual. David from Netskope, thank you so much for joining us. So folks, stay tuned. Himanshu and I will be right back with more Security Live. Oh, well, I thought I had more time.
Hey,
Welcome.
there's no side cameras here if you were looking to pan there.
I was trying to blend in with you, Himanshu. You're kind of like off on the profile today. Welcome back, everybody, to more AWS Security Live. Again, it's the show where we can talk about all things cybersecurity, multi-cloud security, AWS security, you name it. There's certain challenges and things out there that you're all dealing with. And we are here to talk about those challenges with some AWS products and services, and also with our AWS partners. I'm one of your co-hosts, Ryan Orsi, hosting a team, or leading a team, but you can call it hosting sometimes, of partner specialists around the company focused on security and cloud operations. And it just means that we get to work really closely with Himanshu's team and my team, helping go around the world and find out what everyone's working on, where the challenges are, and how to solve those challenges together with AWS partners. Mr. Verma, with the great side,
thanks.
There's no more side profile.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. My name is Himanshu. I lead the team of our worldwide security, identity, and governance specialists. I'm based out of Seattle, as you can see, sunny Seattle in the background. Our team's subject matter experts who go and help customers with their security outcomes using our native AWS and or partner tools. And partners often play a very critical role when it comes to security and security outcomes. And one of those partners is here with us today to talk about their solutions and their offerings and how they're helping customers.
And I think Himanshu might have gotten cut off on his microphone there, but that partner is Wipro. And we have Mr. Siva. Are you there, Siva? Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good, Ryan. I'm good.
Long time, sir. I feel like it's been forever. I was telling him, Shiva backstage, we should just have like, Himanshu, Ryan, and Shiva general catch up for 30 minutes and see if the audience enjoys it. Joking. Well, hey, Shiva, for those that may not be familiar with you just yet, and Wipro, everyone look up Wipro if you're not familiar. It's an awesome company, also partnered with AWS. Maybe a little background intro on yourself and the company would be a great place to start, just to intro yourself to the audience. And audience, please ask questions as we go here.
Oh, sure. Hey, Ryan and Himanshu, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk along with you guys, right? I'm waiting for the roller coaster ride, what you guys are going to take me on based on the questions. Having said about it, myself, Siva Vrs, I take care of technology practices, which means all practices under the cybersecurity business unit, starting with identity, infra security, manage, detect, respond, and threat and vulnerability management, and so on and so forth. There are close to 8 different practices, which deals with solutions, delivery, consulting, competency, and whole 9 yards. When you talk about Wipro, Wipro is one of the global leaders providing solutions across the industries globally. We lead with advisory-led AI-powered solutions currently across 50 plus countries, with close to 230,000 people or experts working in the organizations across the globe. Wipro is one of those leaders. That's about myself and Wipro.
Impressive, Shiva. So folks, if you have a security related or just cloud related or like innovation related question, Wipro is there to help. And one of the reasons why we're partnered up with Wipro is because you mentioned those number of employees over your company, Shiva. Many of them work with you in your business unit in cybersecurity. So such a great concentration of talent. They've been through everything with you, at least what I've seen, right? They've taken customers from on-premises environments into AWS or even other clouds, and they've seen what it means to try to take your legacy security tooling into the cloud, and with the pros and cons of different tools. And some people have their homegrown threat detection and analysis tools, or their homegrown like log analysis and context enrichment tools. And maintaining an application inside of a security team may not always be the most effective thing to do. So I've really enjoyed watching Wipro advise and consult and help level everyone up out there. General question, what's top of mind for you, Shiva? What are you working on over there?
So today, if we don't speak AI and agentic AI, nothing starts, nothing ends. So top of mind is AI and agentic AI.
Awesome. Well, let's get into it.
Yeah, that's a very broad topic, though. I think, Siva, like, and knowing, Wipro and your skill sets, helping customers, as Ryan was saying, like as customers migrate and or modernize their workloads, maybe I think like I just want to like add a little bit to that is that, when we talk about artificial intelligence or AI now, is it in terms of starting in the cloud, or is it in terms of still like like customers who want to like bring data from wherever it is, because AI to me is also become like a little bit of a trigger to rethink how customers have their IT and or workload structured, and model context protocol and things are making it easier to bring in data from wherever it is. But since you're advising customers every day, maybe like add a flair of like like, hey, if your data is all on premise and your infrastructure is on premise, what can you do to unlock AI innovation versus let's first modernize and migrate. So there is a nuance of like like back to basics, where if you are gonna like do this thing right, like how do you go about that? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
It's an interesting question, Himanshu. See, when we talk about AI, the way we look at AI is not new for any one of us. It's existed in different forms and shapes, be it we called it as automation, RPAs, bots in the past, and AI came in as AI, which is the evolution, right?
Yep.
And then and now to our customers, to modernize, we've always looked at modernization from a number of angles. One is about data and ease of use of data wherever they are going to reside. Securely is the next important part. And fundamentally, it is about user experience, right? All these three things put together. When we look at that, when we advise customers about their migration onto the cloud, we are also taking them into this journey about how can one look at your entire compliance as an angle, because compliance is the guardrail from on-prem to cloud or cloud to multi-cloud and so on and so forth, right? How do you look at it with compliance as a guardrail in terms of adherence, right? Which is the most important aspect. So we take customers through this particular journey, which is advisory led. And then we phase it out, right? In terms of the data, which is highly sensitive, then less sensitive, and so on and so forth. How do you need to protect and move, and so on and so forth. That's how we look at it. But then we parse it completely with a layer of intelligence, right? See, today we cannot say anybody can be fully onto cloud or fully onto on-prem, right? There is a state of hybridness which will exist as the organizations become bigger. But smaller the organization, they can be all in cloud and so on and so forth, right? For a customer to decide how they migrate and also sustain which parts where intelligence is required. That is where we are seeing the industry. And that intelligence is what we are wrapping up based on their compliance and so on and so forth. That's how we are taking them into the journey.
Oh, interesting, Shiva. Do you have tools or software or other tools that you've built yourself with your business unit there in Wipro to help kind of get a handle on that, right? I'm just thinking out loud, right? You work with some of the very largest enterprises in the world, and I imagine if their IT estate includes some information on premises, some in this cloud, some in that cloud, and compliance is one of the key business drivers, as you mentioned. How do you all advise and consult quickly and efficiently? Like, are you using AI yourselves to go do that job, or does your team just have that like per specific industry compliance knowledge that they know where to go look for the compliance controls, whether they exist or not? Sort of like those pre-audit compliance experts that were looking around the world, kind of looking around corners.
Yeah. When you look at, I did say Wipro is a large organization. Today we have a consulting business unit, which is run by one of our tall leaders. It's a overall consulting unit. They have industry domain expertise, right? They do have the knowledge of industry specific regulations which come with them. And when you look at from us, from a security point of view, we understand it from IT controls and so on and so forth. Together, we both of us coexist, go to a customer, take them into a consult advice journey in terms of How do you look at adherence of compliance, be it the industry compliance or be it an IT control? How do you adhere to it? That's a consulting-led journey, which is what we take them into. Once we take them into this journey, it is all about sustenance of compliance. I'll tell you that is the most difficult job, right? Now I'll give you the complexity of sustenance, right? We are there in this world which is on-prem, hybrid, then you have a cloud, multi-cloud, right? It just didn't stop there. With the coming of AI, the curveball of compliance actually shook up drastically as well, right? So overall complexity of this multitude compliance management, how does one manage? There are products in the industry, but then they can do only one part of it, right? How can you holistically look at your compliance, right? So that is where we jointly built along with AWS, thanks to AWS as well, which is called as a cloud compliance shield. This is a multi-tiered architecture solution. The way it works is it uses AWS products like Bedrock and NLP and so on and so forth. The way it works is, let's take a case in point, an example, and without naming a customer, it's one of the large financial customers, which is across 90 plus countries, right? And you can name, they have a type of cloud, on-prem, hybrid, and so on and so forth, right? And all kinds of challenges. Now, for them to manage compliance, and they go through regular audits as well because of the financial industry. So it's a continuous challenge. You need to have a set of lawyers who actually look at the regulations which are changing, look at those regulations which are changing, pass it back to your controls and push it into your UCF and then take care of it. This challenge is not new, Ryan and Himanshu. This challenge has existed for decades, actually. It's existed for decades. But then the interesting part about risk exposure, which we all need to talk about, has actually ticked higher, right? So the solution which I spoke about, that is Cloud Compliance Shield, which we have built jointly, multi-tiered solution. What it does is it sniffs for a particular organization, what are the regulations across the globe which is changing. As it gets just in time, like for example, PCI went from 4.x to 4.x.1.
Right. You got busted.
Yeah. Payment card industry regulation, right? The PCI. Once it goes from 4.x to 4.x.1, sniffs it like this on a jiffy, pushes it to the unified control framework, which is defined for a organization. Let's say this is the financial organization, but then it gets dissected into different countries and the way it needs to adhere, what data it needs to adhere, and so on and so forth. Once it pushes it onto the unified control framework, then it pushes it downwards to the respective controls. It converts a regulatory control to an IT control and a policy adherence, pushes it down, ensures all parameters are getting implemented, right?
Just and using maybe infrastructure as code for any kind of
Oh yeah. It's got all the stuff. So it just doesn't stop there, right? See, what happens is, since we are talking about a financial institution, every audit they go through, there's an audit evidence which gets stored, right? And that audit point should not be repeated. If it gets repeated, the person is at risk, right? So it just not only looks at the change in regulation, but goes to the audit evidence, looks at if it's a repetitive stuff, picks that particular thing, pushes it, then also pushes this result back to the line of business owner or the business owner for this particular financial organization to say, I have mitigated this kind of a risk, or your risk is mitigated this is your level of risk mitigation, right?
Whereas previously, Siva, I'm thinking in the olden days, that business owner was not aware of the risk exposure or was just kind of buying time, right? Like just kind of like hoping that particular exposure doesn't become an issue for them.
So that is from a business owner point of view. But if you look at from a risk office point of view or a CISO point of view, who's supposed to do this entire activity, he's always at the edge to say, hey, I've protected, but that's based on my visibility. Today, it is not by his visibility. This process is an automated process, right? So he can stand tall and say, I have protected your risk, right? That's the change. That's the change which they go through.
And I think, Siva, what you're highlighting is that, like this is not just a point in time activity, like especially as your environment's evolving and your technology is evolving, the journey that customers go through, like, is constantly changing. And I think this is a continuous activity that needs to happen, at all time. And this is where this, solution of helping and automating that is not just a transactional activity that you have to do at a certain time, but at any given point of time, if the CISO or the security leadership or the compliance leadership needs to go in and show validation, something like this can be very helpful and critical.
Oh yeah, Himanshu, you just see, it addresses a very important point, which is on continuous controls management. I'm telling you, that's the most important thing, because when you look at industry today, I'm purely talking from a resilience point of view, right? From a resilience point of view. When you look at from a resilience point of view, one is the risk, another is the threat, right? What am I talking to is all about risk exposure, and thus that managing the resilience of business continuity for an organization, right? There is the other side of the coin, which is about the threat exposure. That by itself is a plethora, right? But today, the way I see the industry, both of these things are coming together, and it's always they had to coexist together. But the reinvent of AI and agentic AI or Gen AI and all put together, these things are all coming together. These are all coming together to look at the overall risk exposure / threat exposure for an organization currently today.
I love what you're bringing up there. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think like I was going to go a little bit deeper into that. I think you mentioned, like, for example, you're using Bedrock and you're using AI to like automate some of this. But at the, heart of all this, I'm assuming, is a lot of data sets that need to be collected and then acted upon. Can you walk us into like a little bit into that detail of like, like how are you aggregating this data and how are you acting upon that?
Yeah. So today, the way when we started to build and when we went into the drawing board, we brought in our own assets as well. Wipro has got an asset which is called as ARC, which is actually looking at audit and regulations controls together, which has been built, which has got a huge set of libraries, close to 200 plus set of libraries and data sets already built in, which we keep it enriched on a continuous basis as well. So that becomes the core of this entire engine, while Bedrock sits over here and looks at what's happening in the industry and how the regulations are changing over here. It also leverages our Wipro's accelerator to amalgamate this and then push it down continuously, right? That's how we actually work in terms of managing these particular data sets.
Very, very cool. And I just love what you said, Siva, about risk and IT threats. Sort of like the people in these large organizations are generally different people on those two topics: risk and then like an IT typical threat. Usually when we say the word security or cybersecurity, everyone's mind goes towards the IT threat. I think what you're helping kind of highlight here is that the conversation has become one and the same. I mean, similar to like in the technology space, we see application observability and cybersecurity both coming together. We see third-party tools and products coming together on that, because it's the same source of logs and telemetry that's going to let you know if an application is going to have a performance issue leading to some kind of an outage or downtime, or whether there's a security threat that could also lead to some kind of an outage or downtime. And you're bringing up, hey, risk as a concept for a company is about the company being able to continue operations and efficiently and effectively according to their bylaws of the company. IT threats are sort of just one angle, one vector into that whole profile. Now I'm just curious, like where are you all going to be taking this with AI? So I know you use AI for help me with their acronym. I almost forgot it. The Cyber Shield, Compliance Shield.
Cloud Compliance Shield.
Cloud Compliance Shield. You use Bedrock, I believe, in that particular solution. How about when you walk into a customer organization, a mutual customer of ours, and they're adopting AI or have adopted it, but they're looking at their compliance and risk exposure? Is your engagement to the customer, I will go, like Wipro will go analyze the sensitivity of where data is located, again, using your cloud compliance shield to figure out what regulatory compliance factors they have to look at. Are you delivering them like a get well plan? Are you delivering a actual like project to them at that point in time? I'm just kind of curious how your engagements typically look.
So usually our engagements are typically advice consult led, and we go into an organization to understand where they are on their overall journey in terms of regulations and adherence to compliance, right? Once we understand, we also look at, do they have any technologies in-house, right? There are multiple technologies which actually people do have, and how efficiently are they working? And do they have a common control framework or a unified control framework, which actually becomes the guardrail, right? The guardrail for them, right? And then we look at how good is it being mapped to where they are and how they are moving in the industry, right? This is all about analysis. Once we pick all this analysis into it, we say, okay, we will take you into this particular journey. And that's a very structured journey. Our journey is about how do we drive every bit based on a structured policy and a common control framework or a unified control framework to look at the last mile, how it's adhering to, right? We bring in our cloud compliance shield, which looks at the overall control mapping of it and then brings about observability for them, right? Today, the biggest challenge, which I spoke to you as well, is about visibility and observability, which is basis of controls mapping. So it looks at overall controls mapping, brings in observability. But I also, when I articulated to you about the architecture, I said it pushes down the enforcement, which is called about enforcing whatever changes it's happening, right? Today, the mode at which we are into an assistive mode, right? When I'm talking to you from an assistive, agentic AI being in an assistive mode, we are into an assist mode because you can talk to anybody in the industry, be it from a CISO's organization or a risk organization. People love to hear about an autonomous operation, but believe me, customers or no one will bite into it because it looks scary. No human in the loop, and especially for compliance operations, believe me, it scares. It scares, right? You're given the most powerful weapon to an agentic autonomous agent which can go and do anything. No, that's not the way it has to be. So what we actually preach to our customers is, you start with a crawl, walk, run mode, right? Start with an assistive part of this operation. Now I'm coming to the lowermost part, right? It's not about detect about a change in the regulation. All those things are done. Enforcement, I'm at the enforcement layer. I'm saying, look at an assistive mode. And let's say the regulation and the IT control is not a control, if you automate it, would actually cause a disaster, right? Because it's low risk, medium risk, and high risk, right? If it's a low risk, try to automate it, right? When you go above a bit, right? Example, right? When you go above a bit, get a human into the loop, right? It's so important. Why am I telling you all these things is, world is moving in rocket speed in terms of agentic and agentic AI, which is a must. Compliance operations, if you actually look at, they also cost a lot. Compliance operations across an organization, right? Be it from whatever we spoke, if it's a human is involved in the entire loop, it's a costly operations. Plus, there are chances of fatigue and human error in this entire operations, which would cause a brand issue to the organization, an audit issue to the organization. So where I'm coming from is, it's just not about cost. Look at how you want to become efficient, right? Much faster and better. In the threat angle, if you would talk, I would say reduce your mean time to detect and mean time to respond. But when I talk from a compliance angle, I would say reduce your risk exposure and thus become compliant, right? Which is what? So this entire journey, this is how we are taking our customers today. It's about, once we finish an advice consulting, we look at cloud compliance shield to look at the entire controls mapping, then look at sustenance as a mode, and then we look at the enforcement. Enforcement is about its crawl, walk, run. So look at an assistive way, depending upon high risk, and move slowly. We are continuously building these agents, right? And it's a journey.
this is cool stuff. I think you mentioned earlier, like user experience as one of the key tenets of this. Like, I think I can imagine a world where, it starts with today, like you said, like a human in the loop. But for certain aspects of it, like it becomes self-serviceable because, as a customer, you can go in and sign up to this thing and, easily evaluate or assess your environment, get some, guidance and help or direction. And then accordingly, you can find out whether or not, there's policies that need to be applied or, to be tweaked, etc. So I think it's a very cool way of like also improving the user experience, because when we talk to customers, I think one of the key aspects that usually comes up in compliance is that it's, slow and tedious and takes a lot of burn and cycles. So I think this is really important work.
I was going to say something kind of tangential to that too, Himanshu, that when we talk to security operations center or SOC analysts, and their jobs are to look an alert, find what else is related to the alert, and determine if it really has to proceed to more triage, or if it's a true incident, or it's a false positive. And imagine doing that just day in and day out, hour after hour. To Himanshu's point, in regulatory compliance jobs, like for human beings, we've heard it can be very tedious. But I think, Siva, what you're bringing to light here is with an agentic AI as an assistance approach, where a human is still in the loop for the enforcement piece of your advisory consulting process at Wipro. That, I imagine, is going to improve just job satisfaction, like quality of life for the people that are doing these jobs. And for the overall organization, I think it's a great practical use of AI. You're reducing risk exposure, you're enhancing the resilience posture of just the entire business of being able to maintain operations, including brand reputation. That's something that we do get involved with every once in a while, right, Himanshu, when we're talking to folks out there, that no one wants to have a bad day, right? And that's brand reputation on the table.
Yeah, in fact, I was telling you guys about how the risk and threat are kind of coming together, right? And there is a shift in the industry which is happening, right? If you look at data lake, the security data lake today has come into big time into play, and data fabric on top of it, which is not only picking up your threat angle to it, but your risk angle as well. So if you have your AI driving from this particular data lake, that is where it looks at holistically from a risk exposure point of view, as well as from a threat exposure point of view, which we see, which is going on in the industry currently today. So data lake and security data lake is becoming a core for any organization to have their own data fabric, be it on identity, be it on risk, be it on anything, whatever they want to look at as well.
And that's, I think, all because you mentioned like data is at the core of all this. I do want to like highlight one of the things is that, with data comes the complexity of like formats and, so normalized data is, I think, where I believe like, like the land is moving towards, which is, hey, how easy it is to parse and act on that data. But that's a separate topic we should dive into on another topic.
Yeah, we are just about out of time, Siva. We've really enjoyed speaking with you, sir. Are you at AWS reInvent in Vegas, or any other place where people could come see you?
No, reInvent is the place. I would love to catch up with you guys and talk more how much we have progressed from now to then as well.
Well, you'll see myself, my team, Himanshu, some of his folks at the specialized partner solutions booth area on the show floor. I think we're the one activation with a real espresso machine. So folks, there you go. Have a cup of coffee on us. Siva, you can come chat with him as well if you swing by. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much, Siva from Wipro, for joining us on AWS Security Live.